The moment I found the receipt for a diamond bracelet I never received was the moment my world began to unravel. 22 years of marriage, and I had never once questioned Nathan. Not when he worked late, not when he took weekend business trips, not when the occasional perfume scent lingered on his collar that he explained away as his assistants. I trusted completely. That was my first mistake. Before we dive back in, let us know where you're tuning in from. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow, I've got something even more special lined up just for you. The moment I found the receipt for a diamond bracelet I never received was when my world started to unravel. 22 years of marriage, and I'd never once doubted Nathan. Not when he worked late nights, not when weekend business trips kept him away, not when a faint trace of perfume lingered on his collar that he brushed off as from his assistant. I trusted him completely. That was my first mistake. Before I go further, tell me where you're tuning in from, and if this story hits home, make sure you subscribe. Tomorrow, I've got something special to share. I met Nathan Cole when I was 24, working as an executive assistant at Summit Financial. He was 32, ambitious, already making waves in the investment world. I remember the first time he walked into the office, tailored charcoal suit, confident stride, and a smile that felt like it was meant just for me. Within weeks we were dating. Within a year, married. I thought I'd found my forever, the kind of love stories are made of. My name is Clara Bennett. I grew up in a small town in Vermont, where people lived simple lives and knew their neighbors well. My parents were teachers, Dad coached football, Mom taught English literature, and they raised me to believe honesty was the foundation of every relationship, and hard work was always rewarded. I took those values into adulthood, into my marriage, and the life Nathan and I built together. That's why the betrayal cut so deep. At first, Nathan and I lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Boston. I'd get up early to make his favorite breakfast, black coffee, avocado toast with a sprinkle of chili flakes, before heading to my own job. At night, I'd listen as he talked about his challenges at work, offering support wherever I could. When he said he wanted to start his own investment firm, I didn't hesitate. I gave him $42,000 from the savings I'd worked hard to build since I was 16. It's not just my money anymore, I told him. It's ours, our future. In 2003, Cole Capital Management opened its doors. I left my job to become the office manager, working alongside Nathan as he built the firm's reputation. The early years were grueling, 16-hour days, weekends swallowed up by meetings. We kept postponing starting a family, always next year, or when things settle. But it felt worth it. We were building something together. By our 10th anniversary, Cole Capital managed over $200 million in assets. We moved to a beautiful colonial house in Wellesley overlooking a lake. Nathan surprised me with a Mercedes SUV wrapped in a big red bow for my birthday. Our first real vacation was 2 weeks in the Greek islands, where he gave me a new engagement ring, a 3-carat diamond to replace my modest one. For putting up with me all these years, he said, slipping it on my finger as the sun set over Santorini. From the outside, we had the American dream. But as Nathan's career soared, I found myself increasingly defined as Nathan Cole's wife rather than Clara Bennett. At firm events, clients patted my hand and said things like, "Behind every great man is a great woman," or "You must be so proud." I was proud, but something inside whispered I deserved credit for my own contributions. After all, I managed office operations, hired and trained staff, organized client events, and even helped with branding. Yet publicly, I was just a supporting character in Nathan's story. When Nathan suggested I step back from the firm to enjoy the fruits of our labor, I reluctantly agreed. "You've earned a break," he said. Besides, the new COO needed space to lead without the founder's wife watching over his shoulder. At 41, I found myself with a beautiful home, financial security, and days stretching empty before me. I joined the country club, took up tennis, threw myself into charity work, redecorated the house, twice. I hosted dinner parties where Nathan's clients talked business while their wives discussed interior designers and private schools. Sometimes from across the room, I caught my reflection in a mirror and wondered, when did I become this? A decorative fixture in someone else's life. By our 15th anniversary, Nathan's travel schedule intensified. Chicago 1 week, San Francisco the next, then New York, LA, Seattle. Always chasing expansion, he said, we need a national presence. I accepted this as the natural next step, even as our time together shrank to brief weeknight dinners and rare weekends. I ran the household with military precision, memorizing his schedule, preparing his favorite meals, pressing his shirts just right. I became the consummate corporate wife, existing to support his success. Loneliness crept in, but I told myself partnerships require sacrifice. This was my season to give more. Then, small things started nagging at me. Discrepancies in his travel itineraries, credit card statements showing dinners in cities he said he wasn't in. When I questioned him, he gave plausible explanations. Last-minute meeting changes, quick side trips. I chose to believe him. The alternative was too painful. Besides, Nathan managed our finances. I'd willingly handed over control years ago. Why question what I didn't have access to? Last December, our 22nd anniversary was supposed to be a weekend at our favorite Vermont ski lodge. 2 days before, Nathan called, saying he had to fly to Miami for an emergency client meeting. I'm devastated, he said, but this account is worth millions. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Disappointed but understanding, I cancelled our reservation. Feeling restless that night, I decided to organize Nathan's home office. As I sifted through papers, I found a receipt tucked into a folder. A Cartier platinum and diamond bracelet worth $18,500, purchased 3 days earlier. The gift receipt included a note, to my darling Isabel, who makes life worth living. Forever yours, Nate. Time stopped. Isabel. Who was she? Why was Nathan buying her an anniversary gift? The bracelet wasn't for me. I had a spa package and weekend getaway, now cancelled. My mind raced. A client. Too personal. His assistant. Inappropriate. A relative. We had no family named Isabel. I should have confronted him. Called him immediately, demanded answers. That was the Clara of 20 years ago, the woman who believed in directness and honesty. But 2 decades of subtle conditioning had changed me. Instead of anger, I felt paralyzing fear. What if he left? What would become of me? Who was I without Nathan Cole? I carefully returned the receipt to where I'd found it and retreated to our bedroom. That night I barely slept. My thoughts spun between denial, suspicion, and dread. By morning, I made a decision that surprised even me. I would say nothing. Not yet. First, I needed to understand what I was facing. The next week passed in a blur of secret investigation. While Nathan was away in Miami, I used his laptop, fortunately left behind, to access his email. His password, our anniversary date followed by my birthday, was no challenge. What I found confirmed my worst fears and revealed something even more devastating. Nathan's affair with Isabel wasn't recent. It had been going on for nearly 7 years. Isabel Turner was a former client who had invested with Cole Capital after inheriting money from her grandmother. According to the emails, they met during a consultation, and Nathan pursued her aggressively. She was 14 years younger than him, almost 2 decades younger than me, beautiful, based on the photos exchanged, and apparently the mother of his 6-year-old son. That revelation hit me like a physical blow. After years of postponing our own family for the business, Nathan had created another, one with someone else. The boy, Christopher Turner, had Nathan's eyes and dimpled smile. One photo showed them building a sandcastle on a beach I recognized from our own vacation 3 years earlier. Isabel had captioned it, "Family time with my boys," unaware, or unbothered, that her lover was married, had another home, another life. Further digging revealed Nathan had bought a luxury condo in Back Bay for Isabel and Christopher. He spent at least 2 weekends a month with them, attended school events, doctor appointments, and family gatherings with Isabel's parents, who thought Nathan was a divorced businessman constantly traveling for work. As I pieced together this parallel life, I discovered something else that changed my shock and grief into cold, calculated resolve. Nathan had been moving millions of dollars out of our joint holdings into private accounts and investments. Properties bought under single-member LLCs, offshore accounts in the Caymans, portfolios I never knew existed. Over $4 million in 5 years. This wasn't just betrayal. It was financial infidelity on a massive scale, a systematic dismantling of our shared resources, prepping for a clean break when I became inconvenient. When Nathan returned, I greeted him with a warm smile and his favorite whiskey sour. I listened as he described productive meetings with clients in Miami, noting how carefully he avoided specifics and redirected questions about his trip to ask about my week. I played my part perfectly, the adoring wife who never suspected a thing. That night, as Nathan slept beside me, I made a decision that would alter both our lives. I wouldn't confront him. Not yet. No tears, no begging, no rage. Instead, I'd take a page from his book, become a student of deception, learning from the master. When the time was right, I would reclaim everything he tried to take. My security, my dignity, my future. The next morning, I called Vivian Chase, a college friend who had become one of Boston's most ruthless divorce attorneys. We met discreetly at a quiet restaurant near Wellesley. I laid out what I knew and suspected. Vivian listened, her expression darkening. "Clara," she said finally, "what Nathan has done, creating a secret family hiding assets, isn't just cruel. It's potentially criminal. But proving it won't be easy, especially if he's careful. We'll need documented proof, records of transfers, accounts, communications, and we have to be cautious. If he suspects you know, he'll accelerate his exit strategy." She outlined a plan so methodical and strategic it both frightened and impressed me. "You're an actress now, Clara. This is the performance of your life. Your stage is your marriage. Your audience is Nathan. One wrong line, one missed cue, and you could lose everything." I spent the next month in careful reconnaissance, documenting everything I could without raising suspicion. I photographed documents in Nathan's office while he traveled. I noted account numbers from mail before passing it to him unopened. I even installed a small voice-activated recorder in his home office. Vivian warned it might be legally questionable but potentially invaluable. Through it all, I maintained the normal routine, prepared his favorite meals, asked about his work, initiated intimacy on schedule, all while feeling detached, moving through life behind glass. Nathan noticed nothing. If he sensed changes, he chalked them up to normal marital evolution. Meanwhile, I assembled a team, Vivian as legal counsel, Ethan Liu, a forensic accountant, and Derek Liu, a private investigator skilled in financial matters. Together, they helped me uncover the full extent of Nathan's deception. The picture was darker than I imagined. Beyond the condo and transfers to support his second family, Nathan had created a complex network of shell companies and investments to shield assets from divorce proceedings. He'd bought property in California, where Isabel's family lived, and consulted with a divorce attorney known for representing high-net-worth clients. "He's planning to leave you," Ethan concluded. "Within 6 to 8 months, after moving as much as possible beyond your reach." Vivian laid out options. Confront Nathan immediately, risking a defensive reaction and a hasty divorce, or continue gathering evidence while developing a counter-strategy. Then she suggested something audacious. Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state, not community property. If you file for divorce, the court will divide marital assets fairly, but not necessarily equally. Given Nathan's deception, you'd likely get a favorable judgment, but with so many hidden assets, favorable might still be less than you deserve. She leaned in. "But there's nothing illegal about transferring joint assets into your name before filing, if you disclose it during proceedings. It's aggressive, yes. But so is maintaining a secret family and siphoning marital funds." The plan was breathtaking. Using the documentation and power of attorney Nathan had given me years ago, we could systematically transfer assets back into joint control, then solely into my name, reversing his financial maneuvers. "Won't it look vindictive?" I asked. "If you hide it, yes," Vivian said. But with perfect documentation, it's a protective measure. The plan required perfect timing and execution. I had to keep playing the oblivious wife while dismantling our financial structure. That night, I made my decision. Let's proceed, I told Vivian. The following 3 months were the hardest of my life. By day, I was Nathan Cole's devoted wife, smiling through charity events and dinner parties, asking about his business trips, never revealing that I knew about Isabel or Christopher, or the millions he'd hidden away. By night, or whenever Nathan was with his other family, I worked with Vivian, Ethan, and Derek to execute our plan. We moved carefully, transferring assets in a way that minimized suspicion. Investment accounts were closed and reopened in my name. Properties were refinanced solely under my ownership. Business distributions rerouted to new accounts. Nathan's careful compartmentalization complicated the process, but he made a critical error. He underestimated me. He saw what he expected, a decorative wife who understood little about finance and cared less. He never imagined I could unravel his schemes. As weeks passed, I noticed subtle changes in myself. I stood straighter, spoke more confidently, made decisions without Nathan's approval. Small things at first, redecorating the guest room, planning weekends with friends. Nathan noticed and seemed pleased, interpreting my independence as personal growth rather than liberation from his influence. "You seem different lately," he said one evening while we prepared for a gala. "More vibrant." "I've just been focusing on self-improvement," I replied, adjusting his bow tie. He laughed and kissed my cheek. "Well, it's working. You're glowing." If only he knew the source of that glow, the quiet satisfaction of reclaiming what was mine, piece by piece. By late February, we'd secured nearly 80% of our marital assets. Some remained inaccessible or untouched to avoid suspicion. Vivian advised that we'd reached the optimal moment. "It's time," she said during our last planning meeting. "The longer we wait, the greater the risk he discovers what we've done." We set the date for March 15th, a Thursday when Nathan would be home between trips. Vivian prepared the divorce filing, complete with documentation of Nathan's secret family and financial deception. Derek secured backup copies of all evidence. I made arrangements to stay with friends after the confrontation, anticipating Nathan's reaction would make the house unbearable. As the day approached, my emotions shifted. The pain of discovery had transformed, not into forgiveness, but detached clarity. I saw Nathan not as the man I'd loved but as a flawed tactician whose choices would cost him dearly. On the morning of March 15th, I woke early and watched Nathan sleep beside me. I let myself remember the young couple we once were, full of dreams and affection. Then I thought of the parallel lives he'd led. I considered the woman I'd become, stronger, self-reliant, unwilling to accept betrayal as fate. "Good morning," Nathan murmured, reaching for me. "Why are you up so early?" he asked. I smiled genuinely, perhaps my first real smile in months. "Just thinking about how much can change in a day." He had no idea how prophetic those words were. That evening, I prepared Nathan's favorite meal, filet mignon with truffle butter, roasted asparagus, and a special Bordeaux. I wore the sapphire dress he'd complimented, styled my hair his way, set the dining room with our finest china. To an observer, it was a celebration. Nathan arrived promptly at 6:30. He noticed the elegant dinner immediately, curiosity flickering. "Is there an occasion?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Do I need one to appreciate my husband?" I replied, pouring his wine. Dinner flowed with rehearsed normalcy. Nathan discussed market fluctuations and potential clients. I nodded, asked timely questions. As I served chocolate soufflé, Nathan reached across the table to hold my hand. "This has been wonderful, Clara. I've been so busy, sorry if I've been distant." His sincerity nearly broke me. Part of me wanted to believe him, that somewhere beneath the lies remained the man I loved. I squeezed his hand gently. "Nathan, there's something I need to show you." From beside my chair, I pulled a leather portfolio Vivian had helped me prepare. I opened it deliberately and slid a photo across the table. Nathan, Isabel, and Christopher at the boys' recent birthday party. Derek had obtained it during his investigation. Nathan froze. Wine glass Madeira. His face flickered through confusion, shock, denial, then cold calculation. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice low. "Does it matter?" I replied calmly. "What matters is what it shows." "Nathan, I can explain," he began. "I'm sure you can," I interrupted. "You've had 7 years to perfect that explanation." His eyes widened, confirmation my timeline was accurate. I continued, pulling more photos from the portfolio. Nathan entering Isabel's condo, Nathan and Christopher at a Red Sox game, Nathan and Isabel at a restaurant during a supposed business trip. 7 years. A son who bears your name. A condo purchased through Cole Capital Holdings LLC, a shell company you created to hide assets. Nathan's composure cracked. His control slipped, replaced by defensive anger. "You had me investigated, invaded my privacy," he spat. I raised an eyebrow, letting silence stretch. 22 years of marriage gives me that right, I said. My investment in your business gives me that right. And the fact that you've been siphoning off our marital funds to support a second family certainly does. I pulled out the final document, a detailed spreadsheet Vivian and Ethan had color-coded. Red entries showed funds diverted to Isabel and Christopher, blue for offshore accounts, green for investments under Nathan's name alone. Nathan's face drained, then flushed crimson. The charming investment advisor was gone. Only a cornered man remained. "How did you," he started, then stopped, recalculating. "Clara, this isn't what it looks like," he said. "Yes, there's a situation with Isabel, but these financial moves were for tax purposes, investment diversification. I was protecting our assets, not hiding them." I almost admired his pivot to financial justification. It was the same tactic he used on hesitant clients. "Nathan," I said quietly, "please don't insult my intelligence." I reached into my purse and pulled out a turquoise Tiffany & Co. envelope, the same one that had held the bracelet receipt. Inside was a different document. My divorce petition, filed that very morning. "I'm not angry anymore," I told him. "Not hurt like I was. What I am is resolved. Our marriage is over. It has been for years. I just didn't know it." Nathan stared at the papers, his tactical mind racing. "If that's what you want, we can do this civilly," he said smoothly. "I'll have my attorney contact yours. We'll work out a fair settlement." I smiled faintly. "Actually, Nathan, there's something else." From the portfolio, I produced the final document, a comprehensive accounting of every asset I'd transferred into my name during the past months. Property deeds, investment statements, business certificates. Nathan's expression shifted from confidence to confusion, then dawning horror as he flipped through them. "What have you done?" he whispered. "This is theft." I leaned forward. The technical term is equitable self-help. Everything I moved was joint marital property or acquired with marital funds. I simply rebalanced our portfolio. He slammed his fist on the table, making the wine glasses tremble. "You can't do this. It's illegal. I'll have it reversed." "You can try," I said. "But my lawyers advise that these transfers are likely to stand, especially given your pattern of financial infidelity." Nathan paced like a caged predator, completely undone. It was unsettling and strangely vindicating to see him so stripped of control. "How long have you known?" he asked finally, knuckles white on the chair. "About Isabel and Christopher?" 3 months. "About your finances?" "Almost as long. I've been busy." He shook his head slowly, a reluctant respect in his eyes. "I never thought you had this in you." "I learned from the best," I said simply. We looked at each other, two strangers who had once been intimate. "You won't get away with this," he growled. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," I replied calmly. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Nathan glanced toward the entryway, disoriented. That will be Ethan Liu, I said, standing. He's been documenting your activities and will stay here tonight. I'm relocating temporarily, recommended by my attorneys given today's conversation. Nathan's expression hardened. You're bringing a stranger into our home? You don't trust me. Would you, in my position? I opened the door to reveal Ethan, a slight, unassuming man whose forgettable appearance masked keen observational skills. He nodded politely to Nathan and took a discreet position in the hallway. I'll collect my things, I said, heading upstairs. Everything else will be handled through our attorneys. Nathan followed silently, watching as I packed my suitcases. Isabel was never supposed to be permanent, he said suddenly. She got pregnant. I couldn't walk away. But I never planned to leave you. I paused, absorbing his breathtaking selfishness. So you intended to keep both households, both lives, indefinitely? He spread his hands, feigning helplessness. I cared about you both. Is that so hard to understand? I asked, lifting my suitcase. How did I ever believe you cared about anyone but yourself? His face darkened. You had a good life with me, Clara. Designer clothes, luxury cars, vacations. Most people only dream of what I gave you. Everything except honesty, I said. Everything except fidelity. Everything except the family we said we'd have someday. I moved toward the door, then stopped. You know what's ironic, Nathan? If you just told me years ago you loved someone else, I might have let you go. We could have ended things honorably. Instead, you chose deception. And now you've lost everything. He laughed harshly. Lost everything? Hardly. I still have my reputation, my clients, my expertise. I'll recover financially. Maybe in months, maybe years. I smiled genuinely, born of certainty. Will you? Once the SEC reviews the documentation I've given them about your creative accounting practices, I doubt it. His face drained of color. You wouldn't. I already have. I'd included evidence Ethan uncovered, tax avoidance schemes that crossed legal lines. I agonized over including that, but Vivian was clear. If you know illegal activity and don't report it, you're complicit. Nathan sank onto the bed, the weight of it all finally registering. You destroyed me, he whispered. No. Nathan. You destroyed yourself. I'm just refusing to be collateral damage. I left him surrounded by the remnants of the life we'd built and the deception he'd maintained. Ethan and I descended the stairs, the performance finally over. The weeks that followed unfolded with the predictable swirl of legal battles and unpredictable emotional turmoil. Nathan's initial response was fierce, threatening to contest the asset transfers, the divorce terms, and even the SEC investigation. His attorneys filed motions, counter-motions, and restraining orders aiming to freeze my financial moves. But as the SEC's investigation gathered momentum, Nathan's bravado faltered. Facing potential criminal charges on top of the civil proceedings, he abruptly shifted tactics, seeking settlement rather than protracted litigation. Vivian's ruthless negotiation skills came to the fore. She leveraged every advantage, every piece of evidence we'd gathered. Ultimately, we reached an agreement that formalized most of the asset transfers I'd already executed, with minor adjustments ensuring equitable distribution under Massachusetts law. Nathan retained his personal accounts and enough investments to maintain a comfortable lifestyle, though far from the fortune he'd amassed during our marriage. The most surprising development, however, came not from the courtroom but from Isabel Turner herself. 3 days after my confrontation with Nathan, she contacted me through Vivian, requesting a private meeting. Against Vivian's advice, I agreed to see her at a neutral location, a quiet private room at the Boston Public Library, our first meeting place, strangely fitting. Isabel arrived precisely on time. Elegance and composure marked her presence, though stress shadowed her face. Younger than me, certainly, but far from the trophy girlfriend I'd imagined. There was sophistication, resilience, and something more complex beneath. Thank you for meeting me, she began, voice steady though hands nervously arranged her purse strap. It's unconventional, I observed, not unkindly. She smiled faintly. Fair enough. I'll be direct. Nathan told me about your marriage 2 years ago. The admission surprised me. I'd assumed Isabel was as much a victim of Nathan's lies as I was. You knew he was married and continued the relationship? Careful not to accuse, because Nathan bore all responsibility, I asked. Not from the beginning, Isabel said. When we met, he told me he was divorced. I had no reason to doubt him. By the time I learned the truth, Christopher was 4. We'd built a life together. Nathan promised he was planning to leave you, waiting for the right time. A familiar, comforting narrative. Did you believe him? I asked. Isabel sighed, a sound weighted with years of complicated emotions. I wanted to. But lately, no. I noticed the patterns, the compartmentalization, financial control, inconsistent stories about business trips. She met my gaze directly. I hired my own investigator 3 weeks ago. He found you. The wife Nathan said no longer existed. The realization created an unexpected connection. 2 women unraveling the same elaborate deception from opposite directions. What do you want from this meeting? I asked gently. Isabel's demeanor shifted from apologetic to resolute. I never intended to be the other woman. I never sought to take anything that belonged to you. Most importantly, I'm pursuing legal action against Nathan for fraudulent misrepresentation. I won't compete with your divorce settlement or claim marital assets. I studied her with newfound respect. That took courage. What about Christopher? Child support. Yes, she said. Through proper legal channels, with full financial disclosure and court oversight. No more secrecy. Isabel hesitated, then added, I've encouraged Nathan to formalize his relationship with Christopher through the courts. Whether he chooses to is his decision. We talked for nearly 2 hours. 2 strangers connected by intimate knowledge of the same man's capacity for duplicity. When we parted, I felt a kinship, not friendship exactly, but a shared acknowledgement of experience and separate futures. 3 months later, as the divorce neared finalization, news arrived that the SEC investigation had expanded, revealing securities fraud beyond what we'd uncovered. Faced with mounting evidence and potential criminal charges, Nathan accepted a plea agreement. Financial penalties, a lifetime ban from securities trading, and a 5-year prison sentence, possibly reduced for cooperation. I learned this not from authorities or Vivian, but from Isabel. She called one evening after Christopher had gone to bed. I thought you should hear it from someone who understands, she said simply. How are you handling it? I asked, genuinely concerned. One day at a time, she replied. Christopher knows his father made mistakes and faces consequences. Beyond that, we're building a life without Nathan. I understood. I'd done the same. Since leaving Wellesley, I'd established a sunlit apartment in Cambridge overlooking the Charles River. I reconnected with old friends, began volunteer work teaching financial literacy to women, and started casually dating. Pleasant reminders I existed apart from being Nathan's wife. The divorce finalized that December, exactly 1 year after I found the Cartier receipt. The financial settlement reflected the groundwork of my transfers, adjusted slightly for equitable distribution. Nathan reported to federal prison in January. I didn't attend his sentencing. Our last communication had been through attorneys months before, and I intended to keep it that way. Isabel occasionally sent updates about Christopher, including a school photo that arrived unexpectedly one spring morning. Looking at the boy's familiar smile, reminiscent of Nathan's younger self, I felt a complicated surge of emotion, not regret or jealousy, but a poignant acknowledgement of parallel possibilities, the child Nathan and I might have had, in another life. I placed the photograph in my desk drawer, a private reminder of complex, intertwined lives, not a daily memento. Christopher would never be my son, nor would I play a role in his life, but his existence connected me to my past in ways I was still learning to navigate. On the first anniversary of my departure from the Wellesley house, I invited Vivian, Ethan, and Derek for dinner at my Cambridge apartment. Throughout the legal process, we'd maintained professional relations, but this was our first social gathering, a celebration marking both an ending and a beginning. Clara, Vivian toasted, raising her glass, who reminds us it's never too late to rewrite your story. Ethan added, and to justice, which sometimes needs a little help to find its way. We dined late into the evening, conversations flowing from practical victories to philosophical reflections. Toward the night's end, Vivian asked a question that stayed with me. Looking back, Clara, knowing everything now, would you still have married Nathan? I considered carefully. The easy answer was no, rejection of the man who'd betrayed me. But the truth was more nuanced. Yes, I said finally. Because without those years, without that path, I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't have developed the strength to walk away or the wisdom to rebuild. Vivian nodded. Most clients never reach that perspective. They remain trapped in bitterness, defining themselves as victims. I was a victim once, I acknowledged, but only temporarily. Later, alone by the windows overlooking the Charles, I reflected on the extraordinary journey from devastation to confident independence. I was financially secure, legally separated, but more than that, I had reclaimed myself. The woman I'd been before Nathan had disappeared under his shadow was gone. The woman who emerged was not a return to that earlier self, but a new synthesis, stronger, wiser, fully my own. As spring gave way to summer, I made a surprising decision. Using part of my divorce settlement, I founded the Mitchell Foundation for Financial Independence, funding educational programs for women navigating major life changes. Our first initiative, workshops on financial literacy for women contemplating divorce, quickly gained recognition for practical impact. You've turned pain into purpose, one participant observed after completing the program. It was the most powerful form of healing. Each woman gaining confidence, each story of successful transition, transformed my own trauma into meaningful contribution. The betrayal that threatened to define me became the catalyst for my most significant work. During this period, Nathan reached out once via a carefully worded letter sent from the correctional facility. The envelope sat unopened on my desk for 3 days as I debated whether to read it or return it unopened. Curiosity won. The letter contained no apology or explanation, only a request. Would I consider visiting him? He had matters to discuss that required an in-person conversation. I composed my response simply. There is nothing left to discuss between us. Please direct any necessary communication through our attorneys. The boundaries I set were not walls built from anger but clear lines marking where my responsibility ended and my new life began. A life with no room for manipulation or deception. Isabel contacted me again that fall with news that affected us both. Nathan had been diagnosed with early-stage prostate cancer while in federal custody. The prognosis was favorable, but the diagnosis had triggered reflection. He's been asking about you, she said carefully. Wondering if you've found happiness, if you've forgiven him. What did you tell him? I asked, genuinely curious about her response rather than concerned about Nathan's inquiry. I told him your happiness isn't his business anymore, and forgiveness isn't something he's entitled to request. She hesitated, then added, I hope that was all right. It was perfect, I assured her. We ended the call with our now customary exchange of good wishes for continued healing. Our strange bond neither weakening nor strengthening, but existing as an acknowledgement of shared history and separate paths. That evening, I sat on my balcony, watching darkness settle over the Charles River, contemplating forgiveness. Had I forgiven Nathan? The answer wasn't simple. I no longer carried the anger that once consumed me. It had burned itself out. I didn't wish him ill. I hoped his treatment would be successful and his remaining years productive. But forgiveness implied restoration of trust, a mending of relationship I neither sought nor believed possible. Perhaps what I had achieved was something different, a release of Nathan's power over my emotions, a reclamation of energy once spent on resentment. Whatever the right word, I knew I'd moved beyond that defining moment of betrayal discovery. It no longer dominated my thoughts or dictated my choices. As winter approached again, I finalized plans for an extended trip abroad, a dream I had postponed for years. I would spend 3 months traveling Europe, visiting art museums, taking cooking classes, and experiencing different cultures at my own pace. The evening before departure, I received an unexpected package from Isabel containing a handwritten note and a book of Christopher's drawings. The note simply said, "He wanted you to see these. Safe travels." The colorful crayon illustrations captured a child's innocent perspective. A magnificent tree, a dog in the park, a construction crane glimpsed from a car window. Nothing extraordinary, yet profoundly moving in their simple wonder. I carefully wrapped the book and packed it among my essentials, not as a reminder of Nathan or lost possibilities, but as a symbol of new beginnings, of seeing the world with fresh eyes and finding joy in unexpected places. The next morning, as my plane lifted off toward my European adventure, I felt neither triumph nor vengeance. Instead, I experienced a deep, settled confidence. Knowing whatever awaited, I would face it as Clara Evans, author of my own story, captain of my own course, finally and completely myself. The Italian sun felt warmer, more nourishing than the tepid New England rays I'd left behind. Standing on the balcony of my rented Tuscan villa overlooking rolling vineyards, I contemplated how much my life had changed in just 18 months. My original 3-month trip had expanded through France, Spain, and Italy, each country captivating me beyond expectation. Christmas in Paris, New Year's Eve in Barcelona, spring unfolding in Tuscany. The foundation continued its work remotely with capable leadership. Technology allowed me to stay connected while embracing the independence I'd craved. My phone chimed with a message from Vivian. News from Boston that the SEC investigation into Nathan's former firm had expanded, now implicating several of his associates. Though Nathan was already incarcerated, the fallout rippled outward, affecting many beyond our immediate circle. I typed a brief acknowledgement and set the phone aside, unwilling to let Nathan's shadow darken this perfect morning. Distance, both geographic and emotional, had granted invaluable perspective. Nathan's actions, once all-consuming in my mind, now occupied a peripheral place. The villa's housekeeper announced my rental car had arrived. Today's itinerary included a winery visit and a cooking class in a nearby village. Simple pleasures I embraced without concern for anyone else's expectations. Driving through winding hillside roads, I reflected on recovery. The shift from devastation to a new sensitivity. A heightened appreciation for beauty, authenticity, and connection. The winery tour was a delight, led by an elderly vintner whose family had cultivated those vines for generations. He spoke passionately of soil, grape varieties, and aging techniques, his weathered hands gesturing as he described how the grape remembers everything. The rain, the sun, even vineyard workers' disputes. I smiled at the poetic idea, wondering if people too carried every experience in their essence. The cooking class followed in a stone farmhouse kitchen fragrant with garlic and herbs. Our instructor, Sophia, a formidable woman with a booming laugh, insisted on hand-making pasta. "Your fingers must feel the dough," she said. "Know when it is right." I obeyed, kneading and rolling, enjoying the tactile transformation of flour and egg. Across from me, a newlywed couple giggled through misshapen attempts. Watching their easy affection, I felt a pang, not jealousy or regret, but awareness of absence. Though I dated casually in Europe, I prioritized self-discovery over romance. Sophia complimented my pasta skills, strong but gentle. Important balance. Oddly moved, I thanked her. For the first time in years, someone noticed me for my capabilities rather than my appearance or social role. We enjoyed our handmade ravioli in the garden, wine flowing with easy conversation among travelers from Canada, Australia, Japan, and beyond. When asked why I was in Tuscany, I hesitated, then answered simply, "I'm giving myself the gift of time, learning to experience the world on my own terms." The retired professor nodded, the most valuable gift possible, and remarkably rare. That night, back on the villa's balcony, under a canopy of stars, I felt a quiet contentment. Not the frenetic joy of new love or achievement, but a steady warmth built on self-knowledge and deliberate choices. The journey from betrayal's discovery to present fulfillment hadn't been linear or dramatic. It had been a series of small decisions, choosing investigation over denial, strategic action over helplessness, authentic connection over isolation. Each choice reinforced the fundamental truth: identity is not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond. As I drifted to sleep, a peaceful certainty settled over me. The painful catalyst, the Cartier receipt tucked into a turquoise envelope, had long since lost its power. Now it was just history, a chapter behind me. I had built a new life from its ashes.